To unprecedented news from the United States. Families of 9 victims of the Sandy Hook school shooting have reached a $73 million settlement with US gun manufacturer Remington. It's a landmark deal. It comes at a time when the US is seeing a relentless rise in campus massacres and gun violence, and it is the first time a gun maker has ever been held responsible for a public shooting in the United States. The families sued Remington in 2014, a fight that was made more difficult due to a US law that protects gun makers from most lawsuits. The Remington payout will go to the families of 4 adults and 5 children who were killed in the shooting and will be made via the company's insurers.
Today marks an inflection point when our duty of care to our children as a society finally supersedes the bottom line of an industry that made such an atrocity as Sandy Hook possible to begin with. Today is a day of accountability for an industry that has thus far enjoyed operating with immunity and impunity.
Our legal system has given us some justice today. But as I told Josh Koskoff a few weeks ago, David and I will never have true justice. True justice would be our 15-year-old, healthy and standing next to us right now. But Benny will never be 15.
They had the energy and drive and motivation to do one thing, and that was to do whatever they could so that other families, whether they are in a suburb or a township or a city, would not have to go through the kind of pain and loss that they had.
The lawsuit succeeded in the courts by focusing on Remington's marketing strategy. The victims' families argued that Remington knowingly marketed a military-grade weapon for civilian use. The case alleged that the AR-15 assault rifle is grossly unsuited to commercial sale. The lawsuit also claimed that the company marketed the weapon through video games, which the Sandy Hook shooter was known to have played. The plaintiffs also cited advertisements of high-capacity magazines that have military utility by the company, highlighting that the AR-15 has become the most used weapon in America's mass shootings.
An AR-15, a combat weapon. This is the AR-15 on the floor of the first grade classroom. Was used not by a highly trained soldier, but by a deeply troubled kid. Not on a battlefield abroad, but in an elementary school at home. And not to preserve freedoms, but to eviscerate them. I thought the case was really about the gun, but it's just as much about greed.
The shooting took place in 2012 at Sandy Hook Elementary School. 20-year-old Adam Lanza shot and killed 26 people at the Connecticut school. The victims included 20 children and 6 teachers, the second deadliest school massacre in American history. The gunman had developmental disabilities. His former classmates called him shy but unusually intelligent. The investigation revealed that Lanza was obsessed with mass murders in the run-up to the attack. His mother was a gun enthusiast who bought him an AR-15 more than 2 years before the shooting. Lanza murdered her before attacking the school, and then he killed himself. US President Joe Biden lauded the historic settlement, saying it will help ensure that gun manufacturers are held accountable, and adding that manufacturers must be part of the solution to the gun violence pandemic. Biden warned if companies fail to do so, then they will bear the financial brunt of their complicity. For more on all of this, let's cross now to WION's correspondent Susan Tehrani, who joins us live from New York. Susan, this is unprecedented, and it is the kind of accountability that Joe Biden has been demanding for gun manufacturers. But to what extent is this a one-off as opposed to a legal precedent?
You know, it's unprecedented in a way that it sort of breaks that mold against gun manufacturers. And here in the United States, sort of the gun lobby, the gun manufacturers, the NRA in general is perceived as sort of being this undefeated body, if you may. But, you know, prior to this settlement, some media reports suggested that if this settlement is reached, there will be some kind of floodgates opening of legal lawsuits coming against gun manufacturers, but that may not be the case, and partially because of the rules and regulations that you mentioned earlier, known as the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which grants gun manufacturers immunity from lawsuits that arise out of the criminal misuse of a weapon. Now, this was an exception because the families, again, as you mentioned, said that the gun was misrepresented in one way or the other. It's very unlikely that case after case will be taken to the Supreme Court and you know, it would pan out the way that it did. There are a lot of arguments here in the United States on whether or not guns kill people or people kill people. You know, then there's the Second Amendment issues, the right to bear arms. So, yes, it's a very unprecedented. Those families, they were looking for some kind of justice. Any parent can understand that. You know, the horrific incident that happened and what the families are feeling right now is something that no one wants to feel. But to think that this will sort of open the gates for a floodgate of lawsuits, I think would be premature.
And Susan, it is worth reminding people that while President Biden continues to talk about the need for meaningful gun control in the United States, the political calculus on Capitol Hill, where legislation would need to be passed, has not changed. There is no groundswell favoring gun control in Congress.
Absolutely. And one of those reasons, again, because it is a hypersensitive and divided issue, not only in Congress, but among the American people. And Joe Biden knows this. He can do that when he's rallying to become president. But in a very divided Capitol Hill right now, and in 2022, when elections are coming up, you can mention it once or twice. But when the American people are voting, this is not a time to really look for gun reform, despite the fact that it's a Democratic talking point. It has been for years, but the Second Amendment issue and the gun issue is something that the American people are very passionate about on both sides of the aisle, and I don't think that he's going to be passing anything anytime soon.
And tragic though it is, there will be another mass shooting in the United States soon. It is inevitable. Susan Tehrani, WION's correspondent in New York, thanks very much indeed for that.